Well, if you think school resource officers just write tickets and break up cafeteria chaos, think again. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on who they really are and what's really showing up in our kids' backpacks. Let's welcome Dr. Beth Sanborn, school safety expert with the Pennsylvania Association of School Resource Officers. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so what does a school resource officer actually do all day, and why does it matter now more than ever?
Well, it's funny because when we talk about safety and security in schools, there are all these different facets that are focused upon, but really it's important to understand what some of the unseen protective factors are. And when you think about a school resource officer or a police officer that's assigned to your child's school, if you're uninformed as to who they are, you may have the perception that they're just there to arrest or to write tickets. When the reality is that we're trained to serve as informal mentor counselors, public safety educators, and law enforcement officers. We're spending our days making proactive, positive relationships with our kiddos and our school community.
Yeah. And how does an SRO move from being the officer in the hallway to a trusted adult in a child's life?
You know what? It takes time and it takes smiles and it takes communication and really getting to know each other by talking to your students and addressing them by name, by thanking them for coming back again and treating them with respect and as the people that they truly are. Because when you start to build those relationships and you communicate as people as opposed to an authoritative figurehead, then you get to learn who your students really are and what drives them to succeed.
Yeah, what drives them to succeed and also to get into some mischief. Why don't we move on to this? Drugs and alcohol play a big role in student life as well. Are the drugs that kids are exposed to today the same ones that we remember from our youth, or are they cleverly disguised and dangerously different?
Well, it's really very scary. And I wouldn't have known this information had I not spent that time building relationships and establishing rapport with my students. Because, it's so funny that, if we saw something like this, we would recognize that this is dangerous for kids and kids wouldn't pick this up. And this is a cigarette in case you can't tell. But the evolution of drugs over time and vapes have turned into what we would consider fidget devices and cartoon characters. And it's so very scary when this looks so very different from this.
So now teachers are having this added responsibility and challenge, having to kind of fight substance abuse while in the classroom.
Absolutely. The biggest issue that I see is that with the evolution and the change of what drugs and drug paraphernalia looks like, if you're unaware and if you're unwilling to go out and research it or search or engage in those conversations, you might not have any idea that something that looks as innocuous as a nerd's candy rope actually has THC, which is the psychotropic property in marijuana.
Wow.
Marijuana is coming in forms like beverages and edibles and gummies and chocolate bars. And it's so very scary because we are all in this to strengthen that safety net around our kids. However, as much work as we do, there are manufacturers out there that are creating these products that are meant to trap. They're meant to create an addictive cycle, and they're meant to be overlooked as if they aren't dangerous. And we have to educate our kids so that they understand what the health and the long-term ramifications are.
Absolutely.
But we also need to educate our parents and our school staff so they know what to look for.
Well, and I want to ask you about the parents, but first of all, how are the kids getting their hands on these substances?
Well, let me ask you this for any parent or caregiver that's out there. Does your child have your credit card number saved on their phone? I know my children do, which means that they can order them from any sites that they're finding online. They can go into vape shops, they can go into gas stations, because many of these items are being sold locally over the counter.
Right. Well, finally, what's the most powerful step that a parent can do tonight to make sure that they make their child's tomorrow even safer?
The call to action here is to engage in conversation. not to have an authoritative conversation, but to be open and receptive. Ask your kiddo what they're exposed to, and don't be afraid to talk to your child's school safety team, their teachers, their administrators, and their school resource officer, because we genuinely care about our kiddos. We want to see them become healthy, successful, productive members of society.
Excellent way to end this segment. Thank you so much, Dr. Beth Sanborn, for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll be back after this.